to the first edition of our live product demo, an open product demo. Not everyone enjoys signing up for a one-on-one demo, so the idea here was to have a bit more of an open forum where people can pop in and just check out the platform, ask questions as needed, and then if you want to have a more tailored demo after this, you're welcome to reach out and book a session and go from there. So the format will be a little bit a bit of an open format, so feel free to ask questions in the chat. Cut me off. I'll do my best. I'm probably going to get fired up here pretty quickly, but feel free to throw it in the chat, and my colleague Amir, who's joining, who can help me work the Q&A as well. So, okay, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So, at the highest level, CM Builder is a 100% web-based construction site logistics and 4D simulation platform. So the idea is that you can all on the web bring in your program, your schedule, import your BIM models from various disciplines, architecture, structure, etc. And then you can drop in drone imagery, drawings, other artifacts coming from the design, and then all these temporary resources are coming from a catalog of drag and drop parametric objects inside CM Builder. So the idea is that you can really easily sequence out your site logistics, bring your program to life, and then because it's 100% cloud and web-based, it's got great collaboration tools, which I'll get to at the end, where you can share links, you can work in multiplayer mode, and you can just drive a whole nother level of project collaboration and communication on your project through the various stakeholders, from city folks to the architect to the owner, etc. So I'm going to come back to this. This is basically starting from the finish. We've got someone else joining here. So yeah, Amir, if you don't mind, you'll let them in. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna come back to this kind of final scenario here, and I'm gonna say, how do you get started? Okay, so let's imagine that we're going to London. I got quite a few European folks signed up today. So anywhere in the world, you just put your address in. So either lat long for horizontal jobs. If you want to put your lat long coordinates in, you can do that, or you can just put the address in. Get a quick kind of preview of what you want to do here. So let's say I want to move my pin over here. I can adjust the size of the map tile, large, extra large, custom, etc. So once you do that, you're going to hit generate, and it's going to preview. Essentially what it's doing is it's automatically computing all the satellite imagery, topographic imagery surrounding buildings of wherever you put in the map in the world. So automatically generates this in a matter of seconds. This is one big pain point we see with a lot of customers, users, where they're trying to get information from various places to get their project site in context. But the idea is you now have the option to do parametric, flat map. You can adjust the thickness of the map tile if you're doing deep excavation. And the idea is that you can just like very, very quickly generate your map, your site in context in a matter of seconds. And then now you can come in here and start adjusting, right? So you can start, if I double click this, let's see if I can find one that has a name, 2339 East Cheap. So I can adjust the color, I can change the sizes, I can move things around. I can import my own survey data to adjust the terrain. So this is actually quite a topographic, there's a lot of topography in this area. If I want to show topographic lines and hide the buildings, you can kind of see it just generates this automatically. So you can bring in new survey points from a CSV or just add points manually to adjust the top of the map to be accurate as per existing conditions. So the idea though is to just get started very quickly and be able to start working on the project in a matter of seconds, and then you can adjust from there. Now, if you have a drone, if you're flying drones, you're getting existing conditions. I'm going to come back to this in a second, but you can bring that in as well as a mesh. So this is a drone scan of our old office, and so if you want to show, like, let's say the demolition or existing conditions phase with a drone scan, or even dropping in orthomosaic, a high-res image, you can do that on the map tile as well, and then you can sequence it out from there. So demolition and all the way through. I'm going to come back to this. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm a persona of a construction planner, maybe a pre-construction site superintendent, BIM VDC person, and I want to do site logistics on this job. So I've already brought in a drawing, I brought in a model. This is a downtown Seattle site here, and I want to start doing my planning. So what I'm going to do first and foremost, I'm going to put into 2D mode. So I got a top-down view, and I'm going to start working in the first milestone, which is site setup. So I'm going to go to my resources and equipment, search the catalog for fencing. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in, and I'm just going to use the drawing as a reference here. Today, I'm going to be going just quickly in this demo, so nothing super precise, but you get the idea of the feature function. So I have some tools here from sketching tools. I can just, in this case, I could just sketch out lines, or I'm going to show off our rectangle geometry. You can do circles, arcs, lines, all that kind of stuff. So hit confirm. And the thing about this is I'm going to go here into my 3D mode, and just as simple as sketching a polyline generates geometry, right? So the idea is that you don't need to be a computational designer or automation. You're just sketching out simple lines, sketches, points, and it's automatically generating geometry. If I double click this, I can adjust the color of the fence. This is where I start sucking up. I have some folk. I've done some research on who showed up here, so I'm going to suck up to you there from the BL team. So you brand your site. So things like hoarding, you can have your client's logo on the hoarding. You can have that, and then when this feature allows it to show up on cranes and resources, etc. So you can start branding your site to make it look like you exactly how it would be in real life. Now I can start thinking about access in my open. So I'm going to put a double sliding gate. And see here, I just snap it on the fence. It automatically moves the fence. I can hit adjust, and then I can adjust the parameters of that resource. So this is where we talk about being both an authoring tool and a editing and a viewer in the web. So everything's fully parametric, and you can just double click and adjust right from the web here. Makes it really simple. This is one big differentiator of Scene Builder. It's not just a web-based platform that views models and information. It's an authoring tool as well, right? So you're doing both at the same time. I'm going to hide this model. I'll come back to the model in a second. Let me go into my tree. Hit hide, and I'm going to start building out the rest of my I'm not going to go fully into muster point and all that kind of like the safety stuff, just a real quick understanding of the rest of the site. So let's think about accommodation. So I'm going to go into my project zones, and I'm going to start laying down a few areas. So let's see, I can search accommodation area. So I'm just going to sketch, say, from here to here and here to here. I can just sketch a zone. I can project that on the terrain. I can show when this is going to start and end. I'll get back to this milestones in a second. And then I'm going to just, now we're going to be combining both these features in a little bit, but I'm going to put a 3D label here to say accommodation zone, let's say, right? And project that on the terrain. I can make it opaque, change the opacity, and there you go. So I've kind of started laying down my first zone, and on top of that, I might want to start popping in some information. Now, I'm going to use a more of a North American lingo here, but we have lots of European customers, customers in Australia, etc. So you can, there's like cabins and different terminology here, but you can see I can just drop this this on the map. I can brand that. I want to do if I click this, Control C, Control V, I just copy paste. So just dead simple, right? This is not meant for software ninjas to do all this. Now I can see with these two 12 by 56 foot trailers, I'm actually going to be impeding the fence. So let's say I want to say, okay, well, I don't have enough room. Let's change the axis. I'm just going to slide this along, hit done, and I have a new location, right? So just really light and easy on the web. Just double click, adjust things. You don't need to be a wizard here to make this work. So now I could keep building this out. I could be adding toilets, all the stuff. We have all this in the catalog. But just for the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to move on to the next milestone. So I'm going to go up here. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can just create a manual milestone. Let's just say excavation phase 1, and I'm going to either just pick a date in the future coming from my program, or so that's just the manual way to do it, or I can link a schedule. This is where the 4D aspect comes in. So if I have an imported P6 or Microsoft project schedule, I've already uploaded one. This is the UI you're going to get. So you get all your tasks, start date, end date, and you could just go through and choose. Let's say you have a 2,000 line schedule. You don't want to have 2,000 in your simulation. We see most of our customers that do like kind of 50 to 75 or 100 milestones, right, to show the 4D sequence of the project. And what you would do is you just pick those key task dates that you want. It basically, once you go into this apply changes, it'll generate all the milestones automatically from your schedule. And what's important, I'll show you in a second, is when you start modeling the temporary resources linked to those milestones, they stay attached. So the logical links there. So if you have a new program later, you can just update and sync the new program and everything's going to follow, right? So this is where you start having the connection between the digital simulation and the schedule as you go, right? So for today, I'm just going to go with, I'm only going to do 5 or 6 milestones. I'm just going to do it manually. And I'm going to get into my next one, talking about excavation. So I'm going to start thinking about where my excavation is going to be. I'm going to go into, I think I'll go 2D mode again, so I can have it more precise. Now you could bring in a new drawing. You could have like a geotechnical drawing, etc. So I'm going to just start selecting from my cuts and fills. Again, this is not a real project situation here. I'm just going to show you what, just going to go quickly to show you the feature function. So I'm just going to sketch out where I want my cut to be, hit confirm, back to 3D. There you go. I got a cut. Now, if I want to adjust this and show how I can adjust each face of every cut can be controlled independently. Like if you want to backfill and slope D, A, and B, but not C, you can just say, I'm going to vertically shore C, just for, this is not a very realistic situation, but I wanted to show how you can control each face. So when you get into footings and detail excavation, that's really helpful. So now I'm going to go into another phase. I'm just going to do a simple 2-cut sequence here. Excavation phase 2. I'm going to go to here. Boom. So now everything I do in that new phase is going to get automatically recorded. Okay, so that's how we kind of how you, as you just go quickly. Now once I'm in this next phase, I can just sketch on top. Now, if I want to bring a geotechnical drawing in, snap it onto the map and use it as reference, you can do that as well. So it's pretty, to be a bit more precise. So let's say I want to go here and I'm saying, okay, just, no, I don't want to slope my walls. I'm going to vertically shore this one. And everything in the platform pretty much is parametric. So I can just drag and drop. Now for the American folks, yes, you can just switch to feet and inches. I'm going to keep it in meters. We had lots of people from Europe and Canada sign up today. So, but you can just go into your user preferences and just switch the units here. So if you want to be in imperial, that's no problem. So let's say I just want to go to, I'm going to go down and say 6 feet or 6 meters on the second cut. I can just put it here, or I can use the dragger. Slide the dragger, do the slider, sorry. Maybe want to add a ramp. All right, it just snaps in, fully parametric. So if I want to make the grade steeper, I can adjust the width. So it's all kind of fully parametric there, right? So the idea is like this is a Frankenstein excavation, but you get the idea, right? Just in a matter of a couple of minutes, I've started to create oh, I noticed that it didn't register here. So I'm going to show my milestone so I can edit the name, excavation. Again, if this is coming from if you have it linked to your program, it's just going to read whatever you have in your program here in your schedule. But I'm doing it manually today. So this is how you can start to do like push and pull dates. You can add sub milestones. The use case here would be, let's say you have your schedule says level 2 slab, but the idea is like you want to break into 4 pour breaks, right? So you can add sub milestones here. So some will become from the program, some you're adding manually here, whatever you want to do in terms of the level of granularity of your sequence. Now, one thing I want to do before I get into like interacting with the model, one of the biggest value propositions of CM Builder is running scenarios, right? So we have this whole idea of scenarios inside the project. So let's say I want to look at a vertically shored scenario with soldier piles. Let's just look at this. I'm going to go to my wood lagging soldier pile resource. I'm going to just going to sketch on the edge, hit done, and boom, generate a soldier pile. I can go to adjust. I can just drag the draggers, or I can use sliders. So it's a fully parametric resource that you can just manage from here. Really dead simple. But let's say you're going in pre-con with the client. You want to be able to say, hey, what's it going to look like schedule and cost-wise to vertically shore this with shotcrete wall, et cetera. Or like we've seen before, a customer recently said they couldn't get an underpinning agreement with the adjacent property, the owner on the other side of the property. They wouldn't let them do underpinning under their property. So the geotechnical engineer came up with a very complicated raker system. The customer modeled both options, soil anchors with shotcrete wall versus the raker system, analyzed the schedule, visualized it with CM Builder, showed the client, hey, it's going to be a 5 to 6 month hit to the schedule, which, how much is the owner asking for the underpinning? It's $2 million. Okay, well, if it's $2 million, maybe just pay the owner instead of taking the schedule hit, right? So running those valuable scenarios is really key aspect of the platform, where you can duplicate this scenario, adjust it, make it backfill and slope, or change this to concrete lagging, or sheet. We have all kinds of shoring options, sheet pile walls, secant, all that kind of stuff. So that's something I really make sure I drive home. So I'm going to move to another milestone. I'm going to start talking about how we interact with the model, imported model. So let's go into concrete foundation. Okay, so I just pick any date in the future. So now I'm in the new milestone called concrete foundation. Again, could be coming from your schedule. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and start opening up the model. So here's where when you bring in your Revit model, SketchUp, Tekla, any authoring tool, you access the data of that model from here. So I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to be working in the foundation phase. Again, don't look at the piles and stuff like that with my weird excavation. So for the construction veterans in the call, don't judge me here. Just showing how it works. So basically, you just turn on, okay, I'm in this milestone concrete foundation. Here's what we're going to be building. What are the means and methods that I need to be able to execute upon this work, right? And what's the impact to the site logistics? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, if I'm doing concrete, I need to have a concrete pump truck. So I'm going to grab this here. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to make a new zone. So again, I could just say, oh, I want to make this a loading zone, or staging, or whatever you want to call it. Loading zone, project on terrain. I'm going to change the color. You can play around with the size of the text, etc. How big you want to make. Oh, it's a little big. You can start to mark these zones up for the owner, and then I'm going to drop in concrete pump truck. So as you can see, we have a very deep catalog of resources. So if I hit this here, and I go to now I have all my parameters available. I can start adjusting the outriggers, I can start moving it closer, I can adjust the boom arm length, etc. Make sure that it actually works. And now these resources are not just like random, generic resources. Every resource is tied to the manufacturer's spec sheet of that resource, so cranes and concrete pump trucks with the boom pump parameters. So this is linked to an actual resource that exists in the real world. And what's important when you're doing this, like if you're analyzing kind of where the best possible places for the staging, if there's something that's in our catalog that you need that's not in our catalog, you just go right up here, you hit resource request, you enter the resource, crane XYZ, describe it. If you have a spec sheet or something, that's great. You hit submit, and we build it for you in 24 to 72 hours. I mean, there's no cost for this. This just comes with a subscription. And the reason we're doing this is we're using our customers to basically curate the next resource we should build. We're up to almost 800 now, parametric resources, so lots of instances of that as well. And every single day we're adding more to the catalog. And so as customers from around the world request resources, it just makes the catalog much more rich for the next incremental customer. So there's no cost for this. You just request what you need, we build it for you in the catalog and that's really important for, say, a European or Australian customers. They have very specific resources for that market. You can just request those and you put them in there, and you'll see that there's a lot of those are already in the catalog. Okay, so if I want to put a concrete truck, place it in my loading zone, adjust. So you can see it's just simple, really dead simple and dead and easy. If I go Control C, Control V, I'm going to do 2 trucks here. Again, I'm gonna start sucking up a little bit more. I saw your message there pop up. Thank you. Yeah, no shame, right? No shame. So yeah, there you go. You got your self-perform team here with the concrete pump truck. So again, you can kind of think about that aspect of the surrounding buildings. And one thing I didn't do when I was doing excavation. So remember when I was doing that excavation, if I go back, actually, I'm going to finish what I'm doing now. I'm going to go back. I missed something about the important understanding of how the data works inside CM Builder. So I'm going to start thinking about what else do I need to think about in terms of, this loading zone. Maybe I need to put cones. Again, I'm going to go quickly. Maybe I need to have signage, something that the city is going to need to sign off on a streets and landscape permit or something like that. So I can just adjust, say, okay, let's keep 3 meters between. And let's add a flagger and a flagger, and you get the idea, right? So I can just zoom in here, boom, added a flagger, and then I think you may have seen at the beginning. So things like signage. We have a whole bunch of stuff people requesting things like this, right? So all these types of site logistics stuff, work ahead, whereas the signage is going to be routes with arrows, okay, we're diverting traffic on these days. When on big pour days, we're going to divert traffic in the following ways, and you can show arrows and stuff like that and be a lot more precise than what I have here, which is nice. So you can build this whole milestone out to understand the full site logistics of this. We have some customers telling us they're getting permits faster with this because they're submitting a 2D plan. I'll show you how you can do that here in a minute, but you can basically just do like 5 or 6 milestones, show the client, show the city people, here's the trees that are staying, here's how we're hoarding the trees, here's the trees that are removing, here's where I'm gonna have my crane, here's my overswing, here's my hoist, here's how we're gonna handle the sidewalk, access, et cetera, and just it's a lot more visual and easier for people to understand than a drawing with a whole bunch of stuff on it, right? Okay, so last thing, I'm going to make one more milestone, the fun one, crane placement. Crane placement. So I want to talk about how you keep that logical link from the resources to the schedule and to the milestone. So if I go here, right, and I just hit control, and I'm going to just lasso all these resources, okay? And I'm going to say, okay, let's make sure that so this is my template of how we're setting up on pour days for the next year, right? Every Tuesday they show up, every Friday they leave, or whatever you're going to do. So you can just basically say, do I want this resource to show up in this milestone and go all the way to the end, like a fence or maybe a trailer? Or do I want it just to show up in this resource, in this milestone and leave in this milestone, right? So I'm going to say this only shows up in the foundation, and when I click to the next one, it'll automatically go, right? So now, because it's only showing up in that time, it's only going to show up when you have that. And then if you sync the schedule, it's going to follow with the new revised schedule, right? I'm just going to quickly check and see if there's any questions. Yeah, Q&A. Nothing yet. Okay, let me keep going. So, okay, so one thing I missed when I went back, so remember when I did this excavation, let's go to this phase. One thing that's really valuable is as you're doing the excavation, it's giving you a plan of everything you've cut. So it automatically calculates loose volume, compact volume of each cut. You can apply your swell factor based on your historical data or the data you have, and it'll automatically break that down into what the data you have. So I'm gonna go to this one, which is a bit more valuable. So you have like a whole bunch of cuts and fills, right? When you get something like this, it's a bit more valuable. So if I go into this excavation plan, I can just easily do an earthwork takeoff with a certain swell factor to get the compact volume, loose volume of every single cut, fill, ramp removal, detail, excavation, backfill, etc. And the idea here is to say, okay, as a planner, how many trucks am I going to need? Where am I going to stage those trucks? Based on certain productivity rates you have. So I can look in the city and say, okay, where am I going to save? Okay, am I going to be in third, or am I going to have to use some staging over here? So you can start thinking about those types of site logistics considerations based on the data you're getting as you're building out your site logistics 4D plan. Sorry, I missed that the first time. So lots of data being calculated as you go. So let's go to crane placement. This is an important one. So for the crane, I like to turn on the whole model. If you have it, I'm going to talk about what you do if there's no model soon. So don't worry about that. Okay, so the idea is that now I can go into my resources, and then we have a whole bunch of cranes. So you can search by crane, bluffing crane, tower crane, hammerhead, mobile crane, etc. But let's say I know what crane I want. I'm just going to grab this JSO flap top. I say, okay, I want to put it here. I just click. Now I could snap it to the slab edge, offset by 3 feet or whatever however your 6 feet, your tieback area is, if you really want to. I'm going to move it to adjust here. Here's where all the parameters are of like the tower height. So if I want to adjust up, again, this JSO flat top crane will only move to the maximum allowable height as per the spec of the crane. So I have jib length, right, range. I can adjust the jib length. I can adjust the tie length. I can move the tie back out. All these parameters of that crane are available here. Okay. And once I place the crane, I just hit done. And then very quickly, I can start doing things like put it in 2D. I can turn on my resource coverage envelope, can adjust, like if I start adjusting the hook of the crane, where's that crane going to reach to? Am I going to have any issues with overswing? Let's say for the purposes of this, I'm just going to edit this. I'm going to say, let's mark this building red, and we might have to come by. So yeah, I might need to have an overswing agreement with that adjacent property, so on and so forth, right? So you start marking up the site plan. I'm going to turn this back off for a second here. Resource coverage envelope, and I'm going to start talking about how you can now add like contextual information into the plan, right? So one thing that's really important, each milestone is like, think of it as like a slide. So in the background, we're automatically creating a slide for every milestone, and you can add new slides to it at any point. So if I want to like add a call out and put this on the crane and say, crane overswing agreements pending. I can add a clickable link. I can change the color. I can adjust what that looks like, and then I hit done, and I can start actually like marking that up and start pulling out like muster point, parking, or anything you want to call out on your site plan, like you might do already with your site logistics plan. You can also capture an angle. Let's say I want to capture this camera angle every time from here, right? So let's say I'm over here. I'm on an earlier milestone. At any point, I go here. Boom! It takes me there. I could be over here, and it goes, boom, takes me there, right? So the idea is that you start to create these slides that you can compile into a full presentation of this scenario, right? So just in a matter of, I was going a bit slow here to explain things, but just you can see kind of like the sequence of what we built, right? We had site set up, excavation phase 1, excavation phase 2, concrete foundation. We did some basic understanding where things go, really light and easy. And then, crane placement. If I want to drop in, let's say a mobile crane to visualize where, let's say cranes, let's say a rough terrain crane. What's a good one here? I'll show you how you can go. See, all these have subcategories. So fixed cranes, mobile cranes. I'm going to go into the mobile crane, and what's a good one to use here? Probably not the all-terrain. I'll use this one. And then you can drop in a crane and adjust from there, right? So you can show like, okay, I'm going to use a mobile crane. It's going to be put over here, and this is where I'm going to actually I want to show something. You can double click that, drop to surface, boom. So you can move it onto the map and show where am I going to put my mobile crane, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to come back to this in a second. So you get the idea, right? You start building out your site logistics plan, and then we go back to the first one, and then you have a full, simulation created. What's the output? Like, what do you create, right? So you have a few options. So if I hit share here, and generate a link, you can export each slide, so you can make them 2D with all your callouts and export them as like high res images that you can put your title block around it and like just have like a QR code from the simulation, or you can export a video. You can just click this. We have experimental because it requires a little bit on the local computing power of the actual computer, but it works pretty well. So you can just bang out a video. But let's say I just want to create generate a link. I just want to do something like this. So I can go into like hide my milestone dates. Let's say I don't want to show the owner. Maybe your schedule has dates, but you don't want to show the owner just yet the dates. So you could just generate a link right here, and then I'm going to pop this in the chat. I think this should work. Could be wrong. Like in the fence, yeah. Thanks, Clay. So this is basically like a link that you can share with anyone. They don't need to have any credentials or anything. They could just access this right from the browser, and I'll show you what it looks like. So once they load, you press play, and then all those call outs, camera angles, milestones, sequences, things like this. Like if you want to show how you're going to remediate an existing building, and you're going to use the bottom of the excavation pit as a pick point for the final demolition with some scaffolding, etc. So this becomes like a dynamic 4D simulation, but it's not a video. It's just a live. So if I click forward here, I can go kind of quickly through it. The camera angles will play. And the nice thing about it is, like, let's say if I get to this milestone, I can hit pause at any time. I'm the client, and you can fly around. Now it's just a 3D, 4D model on the web, right? So they can interrogate the plan. For those folks in the UK, this is a UK resource. So you can start to adjust, or sorry, to really fly around and have a better experience than just a static video. It's like a live dynamic link. They can just hit play again, and it keeps going, right? So visualizing crane installation, when is it going to happen? What resources are required to install the crane? This is an interesting project where they actually move the crane outside the footprint. After they get to the podium, they actually relocate the crane. So that's a big milestone, kind of in the middle, like a year in, and then so on and so forth. Then you can kind of just like go through the sequence. Where's the hoist going to be, et cetera, right? So this plays like a video, but it's a live link that they don't have any credentials or anything with. That's one way to collaborate. Another way is to just invite them. We'll get into business model in a second, but you just invite them into your tenant, and they can have access like read only if you're working more long term with them. So there's unlimited users. So I'll show you that, or I'll talk about that in a second. And the final way, which we're really excited about, is multiplayer mode. So as you can see, my colleague Amir, he's actually in the same scenario at the same time. So I can like follow his camera. If we get Amir, click around a little bit. So move a little bit. We'll see you. Are you in there? So we didn't practice in there. Oh, okay. Yeah. So he's so anyways, if as he's working, so like Google Docs, Figma, right? Like as you're working live, you can be basically seeing things happen live. So if I want to move gates, so we call that synchronous collaboration. So if you got a superintendent on site, an architect in their office, an owner, hey, just join this link. Let's work on this site logistics, right? Let's talk about some of the issues that we might have to deal with, safety, access. So like that's a really good way to do it. So it's just like you're making changes live. Or asynchronous. So you can add comments. If I want to put a comment on this gate, let's say I can tag people in your organization or any user. So I can say, hey, Amir, uh, please review wheel washing station. So if you have a superintendent who just can't join the live link, you could just send them the link. They log in at their own time and they just mark it up, right? So similar to what they might do right now, we see a lot of like people marking up with PDF and emailing it back and forth for site logistics, and some project engineer or BIM VDC person maybe models it and they go back. No, change the fence. We changed the plan. We have to move it over here. And then back and forth you go. Now you can just have someone go in here and start commenting, right? So Amir will now get pinged an email. Next week we're pushing, resolving this, replying. So the idea is that you can like basically work in real time with live editing, or you can just add comments. With our Procore integration, it's really nice. If someone's just logging into Procore all day, they can just access the inbuilder right from the Procore UI, mark up with comments, and push it back to people to say, hey, go adjust the site plan as needed, right? So instead of files flying back and forth, you have a dynamic link. Okay, so a couple more things. If you don't have a model, it doesn't mean you can't use CM Builder. So I'm just going to go over here. No one has ever accused me of being an architect, so you don't have to laugh at me here. But you can create massings from imported drawings, or however you want to do it, just directly inside CM Builder. So let's see. I'm just going to create a little. Actually, Amir, my colleague here, actually is an architect, and he's quite a good designer. So maybe I should have him do this. But yeah, I'm just going to make like a little building here. So the idea is that you can just like import some drawings, use them as a reference, and boom, SketchUp, so create some massings. You can adjust the colors. You can adjust the number of floors. Let's say it's 12 floors. You get floor to floor height. go into here. Let's say I want to put a podium in at level 3, so you can end current and all above. So I'm just going to pull back the slab as needed and say, okay, that's my architectural plan. And each of these elements can be sequenced just like the height show that we had from the model, right? So you can basically create a 4D sequence just like that. For example, like this big one, this is a big job where they had a schedule, they had some drawings, the BIM models wasn't quite ready yet. So you can just get really creative with the massing, right? And this is a big job with multi-towers and multi-cranes. There's a lot of consideration on crane location, how do you get cranes in, how do you get cranes out, making sure things aren't boom bound. So this is all done 100% inside with the massing, right? So you had basically snapped all the floor plans of each of the towers and you created this. So you can get pretty creative. It happens a lot where you might not have a model available in early planning or in pursuit. So you can just quickly make a massing, sequence it out, and still bring your program, your Gantt chart to life for the client. Okay, so one last thing. I'm going to refresh this page for a second, and I'm going to show for those folks that want to get fancy pants a little bit and to get, actually, while I'm doing that, I'm going to check if there's any questions. No questions. Either I'm doing really good or I'm doing really bad. Just kidding. You're still here, so that's good. We shouldn't need that much longer, but I want to start talking about if you really, really want to get fancy and start animating resources, we have the ability to do so inside CM Builder. So let's say I want to take this crane and I'm going to go into edit mode, double click the crane, and I'm going to go with this visual graph. So I can create a new visual graph. So I'm going to close this. So if anyone has done Grasshopper or Dynamo, these kind of things, now we're making it much easier as we go. But let's move this over here. So what I want to do is basically interact with the resources of this, or the parameters of this crane with a few notes. I'm just going to do a quick one just to show you. I'm not myself by any stretch of the imagination an expert, but let's say I want to just visualize this crane swinging to the loading zone and picking something up, right? So I want it to go from the first part to that. I want the hook to go down to the loading zone and pick something up. Let's just assume, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few nodes. I can either just go to node, I can say animation, animate bone, right? Again, I drew this, or I can double click and just say animate, animation, animate bone. So I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to do just a little thing that basically I'm going to say, okay, and then the last thing I need is I need a button to start. Now I'm going to do like a simplified one here, but most practically, you can what people do is they set up these animations that happen at milestone changes. So you can set it up so it triggers like when you get to crane, make the crane move, or when you get to excavation, make the digger move, etc. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go bone to bone. Bone basically is just a fancy word for the parameters of that resource. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, when this is finished, trigger this. Okay. Now, what am I doing right now? I'm going to take this first crane and I'm going to say, I want to make tower base rotation. I want it to start at, it's like 360 degrees. So I want to start at 359 degrees because that's just off like the thing. And then I'm going to see where am I at right now. I'm at 291. I'm going to put 291. So I want it to move to 291 when I hit go. And then I want that to take however long. Now you could bring in this from real data, like crane location, cranes move at specific specs, so you can put the actual rate of movement. And then the next thing I do is I'm gonna go into this crane. I'm gonna say, how do I move this? I want to adjust the hook. So if I grab this, I drop this down. Let's imagine I want it to go to there. Okay, so hook height, I want it to finish at 66. So this is gonna be hook height length. Duration, let's say this is also 4 seconds, and I want it to start at 2, and I want it to go to height length, what do we have, 66? So again, this is not for everyone. This is probably more for the power users. But we have a few of those folks that signed up, so I wanted to make this, just show you how you can animate resources, soon the models too. And you can set it up to move in a kind of a slick way. So I'm going to move it back to like the home position, right? Hit done. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and hook this up. So if I go to edit graph, hit boom, move this way, I have this, all I have to do is hit this to trigger, okay? And this should work. So when I hit click me, the crane is going to move to the position I want, loading zone, and it's going to drop down the hook to where I want it to go. All right, so you see what I did there? So basically, if I just keep playing this manually, it will animate the way I want it. So that was a quick one, just to show you how you could do this if you want to get more sophisticated with animations and show cranes moving to loading zones, picking things up and flying them on the slab, etc. So that's one way to do it. I'm going to show you a more complicated one. So it's a very simple example one of my colleagues did. So if I go back into the excavation milestone, what's really cool about this, let's say you have one person in your company that's kind of techie and does, can do this type of visual programming work. You can store them as templates, right? So if I go here, so you can create templates of animated resources. So I'm going to bring in this excavator graph. I'm going to hit this here. Okay. So now if I open up this one's a lot more complicated. It doesn't, it's actually pretty simple to explain, but he's just basically drawn out these boxes and explains how it all works. And this can be shared throughout the organization. So you can just have a couple templates of animated resources that work the way you want it to work, and then explain how this works, right? So if I go over here, this one is supposed to play automatically, but I'm going to hit click me, and you can see now this is going to have a lot more complicated logic to this. So it's going to dig, it's going to move things around. You can actually do some little sliders where you can say play on scene start. So I want this to play, or I want this to stop. I want this to keep looping. So you can try to make more fancy animations if you have the time and the willingness to do so. But the nice thing is all you have to do is build this once, and then it just plays, right? So if I want to like grab a stock pile, like a pile here, and say, are you going to dig from this? Where's the pile? Dirt pile. I'm going to put a dirt pile here, right? And I can start saying, let's make a parametric dirt pile. So we can show the thing like digging and then bringing a pile over here, right? So the nice thing is it's like a textured pile. So if you want to, which is a pretty strong consideration for site logistics in the excavation phase, if you want to show how you're going to be moving dirt around the site and you want to get to that level of granularity, you can. So this is a fully animated, very resource. You show picking up dirt, dropping over here. If you wanted to get fancy pants, right? So this is more for the power users, I would say. But you get the idea. You have that capability inside Scene Builder. Okay, so we've covered pretty much everything I want to talk about on the product side. Before I get into business model, pricing, all that kind of stuff, maybe I'll just show one more thing. When you bring the drone data in, what's really interesting and really a big differentiator is it's not just a static view, right? It's like you can actually start adding resources from Scene Builder right onto the drone scan. So let's say I want to visualize how we're going to be like making this site safe based on the we flew a drone, and this really didn't take that long. Like we flew a drone above our old building. Hit go. I'm going to hit a fence here, right? So I can just pop the fence in, double click, bring it up. Say okay, this is where we're going to have the fence. We're here. See. Boom. So same thing as that. Everything I just did over there is right. You can do the same thing right on top of the drone scan. Right, just have it move that. Let's say I want to show where I'm going to do like my jackhammer. If I wanted to do a jackhammer with excavator, right, and hit the parameters, and I could just swing it, move it around. And the nice thing is like there's plenty of viewers of drone meshes, but what's nice is that you can author on top of it, right, and start bringing that next level of granularity, saying, okay, here's the existing conditions, here's how we're going to start the demobilization or demolition phase, and then you can build this into what I just showed here today. It's like now you go down, start doing excavation, you come back up again with the new build, right, if it's a excavate or it's a demolition with a new construction. So you can get really creative with that. Okay, check questions before I go into business model, Q&A. There's a chat. Is there an Autodesk Construction Cloud? Not at the moment. So it's something that we've already had a talk with them. So we still take we take IFC 2x3, IFC 4, and FBX. So pretty much Revit and all the Autodesk products export to IFC 2x3, IFC 4, FBX. So we support the files there, but the actual integration to Autodesk Construction Cloud is in our roadmap, but not yet done. So we just have the Procore integration done so far. Thanks for the question. Okay, so pricing. So the way this works is we have everything's on the landing page here, but it's like unlimited users, right? So big companies, small companies, unlimited users doesn't matter. So how do we handle this? We have this idea of active project. So up to 10 active projects was your standard, just under $5,000 US for the whole company for a year. Gets you everything you need to do site logistics, but at 10 active projects. What's an active project? Active project is read write. You're sending, you're sending links. It's in pursuit, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. As soon as it's not active anymore, you can go in here and you can archive the project, right? It's dead simple. So you could archive, unarchive, move things back and forth. It's really simple to do. So I could just like unarchive this, right? And put it back. So it's really simple to archive and unarchive, but you just won't go over 10. That's the idea, and that's 5,000 a year, just under. And then premium is just under 9,000, and you get up to 20 active projects, and you start getting the branding. I showed you single sign-on, some of the additional features. We do have some premium features coming, additional premium features coming, as well as like private resource catalogs and stuff like that. And then enterprise is just renegotiate. So it's just sit down and say, what do you want? And we come up with a proposal for you. So just ballpark, it's just under 5,000, just under 9,000, unlimited users. All our training and support is free and unlimited. It's dead simple to create. So you just go in here and you hit contact us. You can ask us a question. We usually answer within 5 minutes, or you can just book an onboarding session directly from our calendar. You just go, boom, I need training. So unlimited, uncapped, all comes with the subscription. And we have an amazing support team, technical support team that helps work with customers to do training. And so if you have new users, superintendents, I'd say about 50% of the users we have on CM Builder, we have 150 customers around the world. It's about 50% is like superintendents and pre-construction estimators and stuff like that using the platform. So it's not just BIM VDC people. As you can see, we're trying to make it drag and drop, really easy to use, lightweight. So it's not just needed to be used by the technical ninjas. So we got about 9 minutes before we cap, so we could always stop early. I'm gonna just pause there. If there's any other questions or anything in the chat, maybe pop them in there. If not, I want to say thank you so much for joining. It's the first time we ever did this. Usually we do demos just one-to-one. People sign up for a demo, but this was a kind of an experiment to see if folks might enjoy just joining a demo more passively and just listening in, see what's going on. I'll send you a recording of this after, so you have a recording, and maybe I'll follow up with you if you want to set up a one-on-one session after to talk a bit more about your own kind of projects, needs. I want to learn more about the platform and a more specific reason, we can do that. But other than that, if I'm going to hang out for maybe 2 more minutes, if there's no other questions, we can wrap it there. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, and I appreciate you doing this. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.